All right, everyone. Welcome to our Monday evening monthly setup. We are on the last day of March and we are going to set up the month of April. So, welcome, everyone. My name's Maya. For those of you who don't know me and have not been to a social with me yet, I saw we have a few new folks. So, super excited to see our new folks here. Um, I'm coming to you from Denver, Colorado, where it was sunny today, but it was a little chilly. But that's okay because that spring likes to play its little chilly and warm game, and we'll probably have some snow at the end of the week. And that's just how summer is, or spring. It's not summer yet. Anyway, so welcome everyone. I know we have folks whose names are familiar, and I know we have some folks who are new. So if you're new, just be sure to not feel overwhelmed with this process. It can look like a lot in the journal. We are going to set up some very specific pages that we'll talk about, and make sure that you take some notes. I also like to recommend to take some screenshots. That way, if there's anything on a slide that you want to remember, maybe it's an example or something that you want to remember, that way you have that. We do record these and they are posted on YouTube, but keep in mind that the chat is not there. So if anyone is kind of giving you some great ideas or some tips and tricks and you want to save those, you can screenshot that as well. Speaking of the chat, make sure you set that to everyone. If you don't, it has a tendency sometimes to default to host and panelist. And when that happens, the only people who see what you are writing are myself and my fabulous co-host, Katie. She is coming to us from across the pond over in Scotland, where it's much later than it is here. And she's helping me keep an eye on the chat. If you have any questions or if you need me to go back a slide, you can always let her know. I try to keep an eye on the chat, but sometimes it gets going kind of fast. So speaking of that, it does get going kind of fast. So if that's stressful, if the chat is kind of stressing you out, you can kind of close that. And then you can just work in your journal. And so speaking of that, no one can see anybody but me, right? I'm the only one on camera, and we can't hear anyone but me. So there's no microphone. So if anything fun is going on in the back or whatever, you don't have to worry about that at all, right? I just had a few screenshots there of our personalized life coach. I know a lot of you have the personalized life coach um, app. Well, it's not really an app. It's like the website that you can get on your phone, and you can talk with your own 24/7 personalized life coach there. And you can kind of get some help. It's kind of a fun little coaching platform, and kind of fun to see. She can help with answering pages, any of those kinds of things. So I saw some folks were doing the word search. So I saw some fun words. People were coming up there. We had vibrance and unplug and wealth and power, joy, lots of fun words. I always like to do the word searches. Those are always fun. Those are definitely fun to do. So if you don't follow Silk and Sonder on Instagram, highly recommend it. We'd like to, there's almost always a monthly affirmation word search that you can find on there, and they also post some other fun things on there. So take a second and follow them on Instagram. So just a few other community guidelines. First of all, be kind and courteous to both yourself and others. No promotions or spam. We respect everyone's privacy here. No hate speech or bullying. We limit those repetitive product and accessory questions. It's fine to ask about pins or stickers or those kinds of things, but the best place to ask those is in our app, because then folks can post links and pictures and those kinds of things. Speaking of links, if there's links in the chat, sometimes those are not clickable. So just depends on the version of Zoom that you have. So just again, you might want to do some screenshots when you get to that. If you have any of those customer care inquiries like billing or shipping or any of those kinds of issues, those all go to hello@silkandsonder.com. Katie and I don't have access to your account, so we can't help you with that. Just keep in mind that they are a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 group, and they're on Pacific time, so sometimes things can take a little bit. So just a little bit of patience is always appreciated. And then ultimately, these socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community. but ultimately you're responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So if there's something that we're working on that's not really your jam, right, you don't really want to do that section or work on that page or whatever, feel free to do something else, right? This is totally your time, and we are here for an hour and 15 minutes for these monthly socials. It's a little bit longer for the monthlies. So you've carved out this time, you've set this time aside for yourself, so be sure to do what you need for you, right? This is totally time for you to help get that month set up and a little bit of self-care going while we work through. This month's theme is authenticity, which is kind of a fun theme. We've been talking about that. We've done several socials over the weekend if you've been in on some of those. And it's a lot of folks are really excited about this. It's a really interesting concept, I think, for us to kind of dig into this idea of authenticity and really see what it means to us for this month. And I really appreciated the quote there of less perfection, more authenticity. And I think that definitely encapsulates the Silk and Sonder vibe, right? We are about breaking up with perfection. Things do not have to be perfect. In fact, it's probably more interesting if they aren't perfect. And so being more authentic with ourselves and with our journals is always going to be something that's, I think, going to make us feel better as we go through. And if you haven't had a chance already with these, with your journal, to read Meha's letter to us on page 2. She always writes a little introductory, we call it a little love note to all of us, with her kind of talking about what she's thinking about this theme, like where is this coming from her. It is her birthday month in April, so she kind of talks a little bit about what again, kind of what the month has to bring. And I just kind of pulled out a few little things that kind of stuck with me from her letter. First of all, she said she wants to boldly step into who I am and live my truth unapologetically. And authenticity invites vulnerability, which inevitably deepens our relationships. It's definitely true that when you are more authentic, you are more vulnerable, right? You are kind of putting yourself out there. And that can be a scary thing sometimes. And that's something that we're all going to work through this month, really kind of thinking, what does that mean? What does it take for me to be authentic? And what does that mean for me to be vulnerable with some people maybe that I haven't been comfortable being vulnerable with before? And then also she talks about how staying grounded in who we are is challenging, certainly in this world with social media, and all the things, right? Kind of sometimes we feel like we need to be someone else, or somebody else has it better than us, or they're doing a better job than we are, right? So again, staying grounded in who we are can be really challenging. And then authenticity is a practice, not a destination. So we are all going to practice authenticity for this month together. And I think it will be an interesting and fun journey. So our agenda for tonight is we are going to do the monthly setups. We usually do what we call an acrostic poem with the month's theme. It's just a little activity to help you start digging into that theme and thinking what it means for you. We'll reflect on March. We will set our intentions for April, and then we will work on our mood tracker and our habit trackers. So those are the pages that we are going to set up. And if you've been with me before, you know I always use these little cartoons from the artist, The Latest Kate. The one with the little pile of kittens says there's room for you here just as you are. And we mean that, right? So sometimes things are going great and we want to share and we want to celebrate. Maybe you got a new job, or you bought a new car, or you signed a contract at a new house, or something exciting that you just want to share. And we love celebrating with our Sonder fam. But we know that life isn't always a series of ups. There's definitely the downs. And maybe you're dealing with some illness, or a family member with some illness, or maybe you've had some job troubles, or we've had some folks who have had some car accidents. We've had some folks with some different illness and those kinds of things. It can be stressful, right? And you are welcome to share those as well. We want to be here to support you. Sometimes just hearing someone else saying, me too, that's kind of going on with me, totally understand where you're coming from, can just be so helpful and so supportive. So don't feel like, oh, I don't want to be a downer in the chat, right? We are sharing everything that's happening in our lives. Again, good, bad, whatever, right? We are here to share that. And then our feelings, right? The other one says the way you feel matters, and no emotion you feel is bad or unworthy. So no one can tell you you shouldn't be mad about that, or you should be happy, or you shouldn't be sad, or right, those kinds of things. No one our feelings are our feelings, and we're just here to feel them, and we're going to be here together to work through those, and feel free to share what that is like for you. So we're going to start out with our authenticity acrostic poem. And so this is going to be maybe on a fresh page in your journal, blank page somewhere. Maybe it's on one of the quotes. Maybe it's on the definition page on page 3. Maybe you do this on scratch paper. Maybe you do this on a sticky note, anywhere that you would like. So we want you to just kind of free associate 12 words or phrases for authenticity. And then you're going to create an acrostic poem for that word, drawing upon your brainstormed list. So it could be sentences, one word, sets of words, etc. So I have for you a set of words that when I looked up the synonyms for authenticity, we came up with a whole host of other words to use. And that's another thing to kind of think about as well. If the word authenticity doesn't ring well for you, you're just kind of like, I don't like that word for whatever reason, it's prickly. You could pick a different word, right? Feel free to pick a different word. The other thing I always suggest is if this feels kind of sticky to you, sometimes those themes that feel a little rough at first are the ones we actually need to dig into. So give yourself a little bit of time, give yourself some grace to really kind of think about this word, as you dip in and kind of play with that idea of authenticity. So here's a couple examples of what folks from some of our other monthly setups have come up with. Again, just kind of this idea of using that first letter of the word and then writing a little phrase. Or it could be a long phrase, it could be one word, it could be any of those kinds of things. And again, I'll cycle through these slides as I play some music for you to work on this. And so just kind of thinking about what that looks like. But I did want to give you something else to do in case the acrostic poem isn't your jam, right? You're like, I don't like the acrostic. I don't like doing acrostic poems. That just doesn't get it for me. So you could always do something like writing a letter saying goodbye to March and hello to April. So I have a little example of one that someone in Sonder Club posted for the March and April. I also have one from the January and February that someone wrote. You could also just work on your definition on page 3, thinking about your authenticity definition. You could also think about a character in a book or a movie or a real person that you admire for their authenticity. Write about what makes them seem authentic to you. Maybe, again, it could be a fictional character, it could be a real character. And then, or you could also come up with metaphors or similes for authenticity. So for example, you could say authenticity is like a clear stream, or being authentic is like taking off a heavy coat, and then explore why those comparisons might feel good to you. So think about these. Whatever you want to do during this time, I'll play a little song. We'll just cycle through these slides so that you can kind of see some of the examples, and then again, play a little music, and then we'll check back in here in just a few minutes. So I know Katie mentioned in the chat that sometimes with these longer words, it can take a little while for us to really kind of think of this and get the right words to really gel into this nice poem. So that is absolutely fine to maybe take this next week or the next few weeks or even the whole month to really kind of think about how you want to write this in. And I saw Alexandria said, this is the first time the acrostic poem came to me super quickly, right? So you never know. Sometimes things just come really fast, and then sometimes they just take a little bit of time, and just give yourself that time to really kind of think about what you would do for this idea of authenticity and creating the acrostic poem, or again, like I said, creating your definition, or to do the letter hello and goodbye. It's always a good time to kind of think about it. And I know sometimes too, writing it in your journal, you think like, oh, if I make a mistake, I don't want to do that. So there's always pencil is always good for when you do the acrostic poem, so you can erase, or spending some time with maybe sticky notes or some scratch paper before you actually transfer it in to the journal is always a good idea as well. So thank you all so much for trying, for making that attempt. And for those of you who got something and you like it, that's awesome. Feel free to share in Sonder Club. And for those of you who are still kind of like not quite sure what you were doing, and Claire's saying, I've never gotten into the acrostic, so I was authentic by not doing one, right? Like, absolutely. Again, we just try to give you some ideas for things to do to really kind of start to dig into this theme. So whatever works for you as you do that is absolutely fine. So let's look at our monthly planner. Let's look at those pages that we want to set up. And we're going to start with our reflections on this month of March. And it's always so important to just give ourselves a little bit of time to think back on the month that we are finishing up, right? What happened? What are those wins, those challenges, the favorite moments? And then also give yourself a little bit of time to think about what you want to start, stop, and continue as you go into this next month. So over on page 8 is where these reflections are. And by the way, if you haven't gotten your journal yet, your April journal yet, and you're just kind of doing this on scratch paper, that works too, right? You can always transfer it in. So thinking about the wins, right? Those are something that you did that made you smile, something that made you happy, maybe some accomplishments. Sometimes I like to write, I like to knit. And so if I completed any knitting projects, I'll write that in there. Or maybe it's if I started a project that I'm really enjoying, I'll write that in there. Challenges are those things that maybe are frustrating, things that aren't going right, something maybe out of your control, a stumbling block, a frustration, just something that's been kind of stressful for the month of March that maybe hopefully you might want to leave in the month of March and move over. And Catherine, yes, you can put stop being sick. You can actually, that is definitely a challenge, right? And then those favorite moments are just that. And sometimes the wins and the favorite moments are the same thing. So that's absolutely fine. So if you have previous months, you could always look through the rosebud and thorn from each week. And then you can, that helps you kind of remind you of what you did. Oh, Katie bought 2 pounds of yarn last week to give myself the push to finally crochet a sweater. Yay, I love it. Or you could also use your phone to review your calendar and photos from the last month, right? So just kind of remembering, because if you're like me, sometimes I'm like, what did I do last month? So it's always kind of good to take a look at that. And then that start, stop, and continue. You want to start maybe things that you're not doing, but you want to start doing, maybe things that you could do to get better results. Maybe you want to experiment with something, try something different. Things you want to stop are those things that aren't working, they're not helpful, they're impeding, or they're not practical, they're not delivering those desired results, things you don't like, things that no longer serve you. And then you want to continue those things that are working well, things you want to keep, things you want to keep doing to see if they're worthwhile, things you like, or things you need. So here's some examples of those start, stop, and continue ideas that folks have put in there. And you will notice a lot of times we want to stop the mindless scrolling, the wasting time on the phone, right? Those kinds of things. A lot of us are wanting to stop that. So maybe think about the thing you want to stop first, and then think, what is something that I could replace that with, right? And then I could replace that with the start. So maybe I want to stop mindlessly scrolling on my phone, and I want to start focusing on reading, reading a new novel. right? So you want to give yourself something you're complacent. I'm going to stop scrolling on the phone and I'm going to go for a walk. Um, Something like that. Or I'm going to call a friend, those kinds of things, right? And then the continue, you can see kind of different things. One person said writing things down, what measured gets done. They want to continue working on me. They want to continue their Silk and Sonder practice. They want to continue honest expectations and realistic challenges. So I will let you spend a little time thinking about that. Feel free to share in the chat if you would like, and then we'll check back in and keep moving on. All right. So thank you all for sharing in the chat some of those wins and challenges and favorite moments, and then what you're thinking about maybe starting in the month of April, or what you want to stop and what you want to bring forward, what you want to continue. Always such a good activity to just really give yourself that little bit of time to think about that month that just ended. So thank you all for sharing in the chat. So, oops, I forgot to give you this one. This is another good one to think about. If you weren't quite sure how to do that start, stop, and continue, you can also think about it how you feel and the reason that you feel that way, and then what you need because of that. And I know I saw Katie kind of talking about in the chat, like do what you need to do for yourself, right? And so sometimes we have to kind of think about, I'm feeling a certain way because of a certain way, and I want to feel this. So this can be a good place to do that as well with this little section. So another idea for a way that you can use that. So let's move over to page 9 to our April intentions. And remember that intentions really are the act of intending to do something, right? This determination to do a specific thing or act in a specific manner. And if you notice at the top of page 9, it says, a new month, a new you. Setting intentions is not making a to-do list. It's asking something of yourself and then giving yourself the strength to do it. And so we give you 6 different areas of your life. These are just example categories. So don't ever feel like you are stuck with the ones that we give you. We just try to give you some ideas of 6 that you can potentially use. And I'll show you some of the ways that people have come up with different categories for those areas. So just some tips and tricks for how to tackle this page. You might want to use the theme of authenticity to set your intentions. So how you might feel, how you might feel authentic in those different areas. Maybe you want to focus on one area like self-love or self-talk. Maybe you want to use the name of a song titles, or song lyrics that are inspiring for you in those areas. Again, thinking about how you want to feel in those areas this month. You can also just use stickers or just colors, draw a doodle, put some images in there. And then some people like to do it as one thing you want to let go of in that area and one thing you want to start doing. So you can change these categories, right? You can change them to whatever makes sense for you. And I'll show you some examples here in a second. You might also want to pick one of the national months, right? It's like National Month of blank, and maybe make your intentions around those areas. So this month, the month of April, is Stress Awareness Month, Parkinson's Awareness Month, National Pickleball Month, National Poetry Month, Child Abuse Prevention Month, National Financial Literacy Month, National Volunteer Month, and National Autism Awareness Month, just to name a few. So sometimes using that as kind of a guide or a theme for these areas can be kind of fun. And you also maybe want to, especially if you're new, you want to focus on one or two of these areas and leave the others blank. So you could color those in, put stickers over those kinds of things, and maybe just focus on one or two that you want to really hone in on this month to give yourself that full attention there. So here's some examples of things that other folks have done on this page. And you can see someone changed professional goals to learnings, because a lot of times people say, well, I'm retired and I don't necessarily have professional goals anymore, but I still want to learn. I still want to be a lifelong learner. So they changed that to learning goals. Instead of money management, they have home and garden management. It is coming upon that gardening season time again. I know a lot of folks are getting excited to get their gardening gear out. So maybe one of these boxes is going to be some intentions around that spring fun outside with the gardening. There's also, you could see, you could change personal life to creative life. Some people like to change that to creative life. I was trying to think of some different ones. There's lots of different ways that you can change into some of these different areas. Yeah, and if you have the Sonder, the life coach app, or it's not really an app, the page, right? That add-on. Someone said that they ran with the stress awareness month and went with Jenny's suggestions of intentions to reduce stress. I love that. And Heather said she posted that in Sonder Club yesterday. So that's the other thing too. It's always great to look in there and see what kinds of things folks have done. You can also see some people, they're not quite ready to commit to their intentions for the month. So they use some sticky notes on those squares, and then they'll work on that a little bit into the week, into that first week, until they can solidify those intentions. Some people like to do scrapbook style. So they have just some pictures or some stickers, again, like that. You can also see there's the one that has a space for reflection. So they kind of blanked out the money management and made that a review, right? Like a month review, kind of like, how did I do? How did this work for me? There is one on the right that someone used, and I love, she totally repurposed this. I mean, it's still intentions, but what she did is she covered up the categories, right? And so she said, I'm authentic when I live my core values. How I do this: value-based decisions, daily reflection, and gratitude practice, and acts of kindness. So I love that idea of saying, like, I'm authentic when I do this, and this is how I'm going to do that. This is how I'm going to kind of bring that in. I'm authentic when I celebrate my creative spirit. How I'm going to do this: create a creative workspace, maintain a creative journal, and weekly creative dates, right? So these are all that's a great idea for how to make this page work for you for those intentions. And especially, she wants to focus on authenticity. You can also just have a single word. You can see the one in the middle. They have things like birthdays, self-discovery, move, friends, organize, action, and then they use some fun stickers. There's some stickers up in the top left as well. The one underneath is a really pretty, they have more of one thing and then less of another underneath that. And that's kind of a fun way to help yourself, kind of think of those intentions. So I like the more owning my quirks, acceptance, more snuggling my pets, more organization, less procrastination, and self-deprecation, right? So good ideas for that under personal life. So those are some great examples. Some people like to use quotes. So maybe if you have a favorite author, you could always Google a quote by this author around physical health and see what kind of quotes come up. Those are always kind of fun. Song titles, again, are fun. Intentions and an action item, right? So they have the one that looks like kind of like little envelopes. They have the top, the intention kind of colored in the top triangle, and then they have those action items underneath. Just some simple statements like, I'm going to do the daily ritual, have better self-care, yoga and walking, express my adoration, side hustle, apply to jobs, find apps, right? Like those kinds of, those are all great ways to address these intentions. And here's a couple other new ones that were in Sonder Club the other day for April. They have things like starting each day with positivity, read daily text. Another person has for key relationships, nurture relationships with honesty and love, seeking authenticity in my interactions, right? And they have, they changed professional goals to creativity. So again, this is so personal. And I love Claire saying, I'm trying to combine this with my word of the year, how I'm going to grow and remain authentic. That is a great idea as well. If you have that word of the year, how can you kind of incorporate that into these intentions also along that theme of authenticity as well. So I'm just going to scroll through these so you can kind of take a look at the different ideas that folks have done. Feel free to share in the chat what you're going to do with this section. Maybe you're going to completely repurpose it and do something totally different, and feel free to share that with us because we love to get those other ideas. All right, I'll be quiet and let you share in the chat, and then we'll check back in. Okay, so hopefully you got some good ideas for how you want to set those intentions. Again, sometimes this is something that takes a little thought. And sometimes it's even better, like when you start to set up your week and then you can kind of go back and forth, or sometimes you really want to look through your month. I like to look through my calendar and say, like, okay, what kinds of things do I have going on this month? How can I use those to how can I really set some intentions so that I can really be present during those events for the month and show up as my authentic self, right? So that definitely is something to kind of think about. So thank you all for sharing in the chat. And let us move into those mood and habit trackers. So these are a great way to really kind of give yourself that information about how things are going. You can kind of, with the mood tracker, you can keep track of the moods that you're feeling during the month. And then that habit tracker, you can keep track of those specific habits that you really want to maybe either establish this month, or you want to track and show yourself how good you've gotten at completing these habits. So we'll start out with the mood tracker on page 10. And we like to use these to really help us understand trends and how we're feeling, or also to notice and begin making shifts, and then bring tools into what works when those positive moods show up for us. And I think it's always interesting. Some people, think like, why should I track my moods? Like, what is that? How is that going to help me? And I think something that's really helpful is we have a tendency to think like, I'm always sad, or I'm always um, angry, or I'm always tired, or those kinds of things. And when you start to track it and tracking different moods, you start to see that the always isn't really true. We had one of our members one time talk about how her husband was saying something like, oh, you're always irritated or something, and she was like, no, I'm not. Look at my mood tracker. You can see here I was joyful, and here I was excited, and here I was this. So she was like, I'm not always irritated, or I'm not always in a bad mood. And so it was kind of nice sometimes to just have that data piece, right? The receipts, so to speak, to show someone and say, I'm not always in this particular way. And if you've been with us for a while, we have two different setups. There's the hexagons and there's the circle. And so this is going to be the hexagon month. And I know we kind of have team circle and team hexagon. And so I know sometimes some is more of a favorite for others. And so this month we're going to do the hexagons. It will be lovely. I will show you some fun examples of ways to do that. Yeah, Lori says she's team hexagon. So some of the things you can do is you can choose 2 to 3 negative feelings, 1 neutral, and 2 to 3 positive. I know that some people like to pick an in-between mood, in kind of like a meh, MEH mood, or something to kind of track, or a blah, to kind of to pop in there kind of as the neutral. You could focus on the theme of authenticity this month. You could even say, like, okay, on a scale of 1 to 6, how authentic was I today? How authentically did I show up? You could fill in every emotion that comes in for the day, or fill in whatever emotion is strongest. You could also use stickers, colored pens, doodles, whatever, to kind of create that key for what that looks like there up at the top. And I also have this mood wheel with all the words, lots of fun words that you can use if you're looking for something a little bit different than, like happy, sad, angry, right? Those kinds of things. Maybe irritable is something you want to track for the month. Maybe frustrated, scared, enthusiastic, amazed, dismayed, those kinds of things that you want to track. And again, I'll cycle through these as we're working on it, so you're able to take a look at that. You can also repurpose this, right? So some people say, I don't really need to track my moods. I'm good with that. But maybe I want to track my anxiety levels, or maybe I want to track depression levels or energy levels, or I want to use it as a daily affirmation tracker. I want to use it as a reading tracker. I want to use it as an exercise tracker, right? Again, it's kind of like, what is it that you want to track here? So here's some examples of things that folks have done. The one up in the top left is someone who is one of our facilitators, who Bailey, she wants to track her anxiety levels, and because it's very important for her to be able to kind of see what that looks like over the month. If she's working with someone, she can kind of, again, have that piece of data, as opposed to trying to remember how you felt, 3 weeks ago or something. So she has the levels of panic attack, heavy, frequent, moderate, light, and none. So she can kind of track what the anxiety looks for each day in the month. There's also someone who tracked both their emotions and their energy levels. So the emotions were manic, balanced, and depressed, and they had the little flower, but then they did a colored line around the hexagon that talked about their energy levels, which is something that's really important to also look at. Maybe you find that when you're manic, your energy levels are very high, or when you're depressed, the energy levels are very low, or kind of what that, what that looks like. Um, there's also, again, whatever kind of mood, sad, anxious, neutral, happy, jealous, grateful, happy, sad, joy, peace, hopeless, and alone. There's one that has meh, and they have like little faces in there where they have like meh and yikes. And then they have mood elevators. So that's the other thing, right? They have like, here's how I'm feeling, and maybe here's some mood elevators that I tried to kind of help elevate those. And again, there's stickers or the colored pens, those kinds of things that you can use to track. Maybe you want to track food. So one person was tracking their carbs, dairy, and then how they felt, where they feel great, bloated, upset, or tired when they ate those things. Again, down the bottom, they have like yay me, accomplished, joyful, calm, unsure, stressed, and tired. I am actually going to try to track the amount of caffeinated beverages that I drink this month. My doctor suggested that when I've been complaining about having trouble sleeping. And sometimes I know I probably drink far too many. So I'm going to track the number of 8-ounce servings, which, have you really looked at how much 8 ounces is? 8 ounces is not a lot. It's just a cup, right? Whenever you think like, oh, it's a cup of coffee, but then measure out how much your mug actually takes. And sometimes it's like, oh, maybe that's actually more than 8 ounces. So kind of trying to track that to kind of see what that looks like. And I like the idea of, we're not expecting something, but we're inspecting something while we're respecting it, right? So again, kind of thinking about, if I see this for the month, what might that tell me, right? How can I maybe understand how I'm feeling, or maybe how external things are influencing me? Oh, and Amanda, oh, who was it? Somebody said, oh, Michelle said hers is the middle left. Is that the one with fear, anger, sadness, surprise, joy, and love? Excellent, right? And you notice it doesn't have to be fancy, right? She has very nice color, a nice little mark in there, and it's fabulous, right? So don't think that you have to be, you have to have stickers, or you have to do something, quote unquote fancy, right? Like, this is a perfect example of, these are the things I'm going to track. And then you're going to kind of see what this looks like. Oh, Michelle, she says she's not artistic, but I think it's very artistic. It's a very pretty, pretty little color squiggles. And I love color too. So I will let you work on that. Let us know if you want to in the chat what moods you are tracking, or what you're using this habit tracker for this month. And then we'll check back in and keep moving on. All right, good job thinking about what you want to track on this page. And again, it doesn't have to be moods. It really can be whatever you're like. I would like at the end of the month, I would like to see how many pages of a book I read, or how many steps I took every day, or um, how many people I wrote a letter to or made a telephone call to or something like that, right? It could be a connections tracker where you're tracking that. Again, it's kind of whatever works for you. And that's the great thing about we get a new month every month. And so you can experiment with something and see how that works for you this month. And then if it didn't work out so hot, change it up again next month. No big deal. I promise we are not going to show up at your door and knock on the door and ask to see your journal and give you a grade, right? There's no journal police, I promise. So our last section that we're going to work on is our habit tracker on page 11. And this can really be kind of a fun place to maybe try something new that maybe you kind of think might be a good habit, just to kind of see how it works. It's also a good place to track the stopping of doing things, right? It's a like stop doing habits that don't serve us. So maybe it's like no drive through, right? And you're going to do that. Or maybe it's something to continue. You can always bring forward, if you have your habit tracker from last month and you really liked it and it was really helpful, bring all those habits back over, right? You don't have to come up with brand new habits every month. If there's something that's working really well, absolutely do that. You could use authenticity somehow as your focus. You can pick a theme like grounded, calm, joy, delight. You can continue those habits from last month, like I said. I always recommend that you find a balance of habits that you know you can do and ones that might be trickier to commit to. So if I know it's going to be maybe a stressful month and I want to give myself an easy win, I will put one of the habits on there as make my bed, because that is a habit that is just very ingrained in me. I just do it every morning. Even when we're on vacation and in a hotel, my husband always laughs at me because I'm making the bed in the hotel. But it's just what I do, and it makes me happy and it makes me feel like I can start my day. And so if I am feeling like I need a quick win in my habits, my habit tracker, I will put that as the first thing because I know I will always be able to check that off every day. And remember, you do not have to fill in every single line. If you want to track 4 habits, just 4. If you want to focus on just one thing, you absolutely can just do one thing. Remember, this is something for you. I definitely do not recommend finding 6 brand new, or I think it's 7 lines. I don't recommend finding 7 brand new habits to try. That's too much. Your brain is kind of going to be like, that's too much, and it will be way too stressful. So again, find that nice balance. So you can see some examples of things that folks have done. That one in the top right, they did 3 things and they did a nice big solid color to kind of show where those 3 things were. The one in the bottom right is also really important because they talk about they had a migraine for 3 days. And so they didn't do any of their habits. And that's okay, right? They had an illness. They needed to take a break. And I like this quote from Atomic Habits by James Clear. If you haven't had a chance to read that, it definitely is a great read. But he talks about, if you want to predict where you'll end up in life, all you have to do is follow the curve of tiny gains or tiny losses and see how those daily choices will compound 10 or 20 years down the line. So think about maybe some habits. It's a little habit, but maybe if you do it every single day, it will compound that 10 or 20 years down the line. Or maybe you don't even want to go that far. Just like at the end of the year, it will be like this because I do this, right? So here's some examples if you need some examples. If you're like, I just don't know, not sure what to put in here for a habit. What's a good habit? Maybe it's something like making your bed or flossing or picking a song of the day or increasing your water intake. Maybe it's cooking one meal at home. Maybe it's just having a laugh, right? And again, this wheel is really for things that you want to do every day this month. It doesn't have to be, but that's the general idea of it. And then in your weekly setup, you have those habits and activities that often are very specific for the week that maybe you only want to do maybe once or twice or 3 times during the week. So that's kind of the difference between those. Here's some other examples of very fancy, very pretty things that folks have done. And I also like, again, small habits, right? Reading 20 pages per day is 30 books a year. Saving $10 a day is $3,650 a year. Running a mile every day is 365 miles in a year. Decluttering one room per week finishes your home in 3 months, right? So again, don't underestimate that power of those small habits. Here's some other examples. Again, very pretty, very colorful, lovely things that folks do. And I like the one where she has something fun and creative, and then she kind of wrote what the fun or creative thing was in the tiny little square. My handwriting is too big. I could never fit words in there, but I love that idea. And again, kind of thinking about, what is this habit? What do I want? To look at those intentions, right? And maybe there's some habits that you can add that would help you live out that intention. And then again, here's some other examples. Again, so pretty. I love our creative Sonder fam that have all these fabulous pictures, and they do all these really fun things with the colors. But then again, right, the one over on the in the bottom, very basic but so important, right? They want to read, allergy drops, fruits and veggies, and home care, right? They have 4 very specific things they want to do. So again, kind of whatever works good for you. Maybe you want to do you want to make sure you're flossing, or those kinds of, yeah, that one on the left is super fun. I love that. It's so pretty. And then I liked this. I came across this where a friend made the suggestion to start a note on our phones called "Good Things Are Always Happening to Me," and to purposefully find something to add to it every day. Absolute game changer. So that's a great idea for a habit that you might want to do. You want to create a note on the phone, and it's the note's title is "Good Things Are Always Happening to Me," and you want to put something in there each day. And remember, it's not a bingo. Coverall isn't the only way to win. And you see the other person had put "giving myself grace and moving on because it's not worth the stress," right? They didn't do it for those days, and they're like, I didn't do it. It's fine. No worries. All right. So I'm going to cycle through these. Feel free to let us know in the chat maybe what habits you're going to be tracking this month. And I'll play a little music, and then we'll check back in and wrap things up. Okay, well, I'm glad you're all enjoying the music that I picked for tonight. It's always fun to pick some pick some songs that, I think are going to kind of be inspiring for us as we set up our month. So hopefully you've got some good ideas for some good habits. I saw lots of us were talking about things that have been kind of stressful. So maybe that take the 3 deep breaths is something that's going to be really helpful for us this month. So, love, thank you for sharing in the chat the different kinds of things that you're going to put into that habit tracker for the month. And please, if you feel comfortable doing so, share your planner. You never know. I think it was Michelle who said, because hers was in here tonight, she's like, you never know, and it might show up in one of our socials. And it really is nice to be able to see what other real folks are doing, right? And to know, get some fun ideas and to see those kinds of things. So I will leave you with a quote from Brene Brown and about authenticity. And she says that authenticity isn't something we have or we don't have. It's a practice, a conscious choice of how we want to live. It's a collection of choices that we make up each day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest and let our true selves be seen. So let's go out there and make good choices for the month of April. I loved spending time with you all here this evening, and I hope you have a fabulous, fabulous month of April. So take care, everyone, and have a great rest of your Monday.
I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send a flag, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come, and I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me.